President Biden's son Hunter has been found guilty on all 3 felony charges he faced relating to a gun he purchased when he was an active crackhead in 2018. He now faces up to 25 years in prison and up to $250,000 in fines. And conservatives are celebrating. But we shouldn't. I'm sorry to be the one to rain on your parade. This is not a win for conservatives. This is what they call a limited hangout. It's a trifle to give the appearance of justice as the liberal ruling class continues to persecute conservatives. The whole point of the Hunter prosecution, the reason the libs are basically fine with it, is that it is a politically inexpensive way of justifying imprisoning the liberal establishment's chief threat, Donald Trump. There are lots of differences between the prosecutions of Hunter Biden and Donald Trump, but the most glaring difference is this. Hunter Biden has been found guilty of a handful of his least serious crimes. Some of his only crimes, in fact, that don't implicate his corrupt father. Trump has been convicted of crimes that he not only didn't commit, but which aren't even crimes in the first place. Once again, conservatives are getting played. We will get into it. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. NBA coach Joe Mazzulla, what a beautiful name that is. He just gave a 1-2 punch on a race-baiting question and answered about religion. Also, Star Wars has apparently gone totally gay. We have so much to talk about. First, though, I got to talk to you about Birch Gold. Text Knowles to 989898. We recently had some monumental news that no one is talking about. For the first time in our history, the interest we pay on the national debt has surpassed every individual budget item except for Social Security. The U.S. now spends more on interest than on national defense or Medicare, and the situation is only getting worse as the government continues to spend like drunken sailors. That is why investors, central banks, and concerned savers are turning to gold, something not tied to the inflated U.S. dollar. Birch Gold understands that navigating financial decisions can be scary. That is why their in-house IRA department is there to guide you every step of the way. Birch Gold is committed to addressing your questions and concerns promptly. Whether it is about fees, taxes on rollovers, or the timing of the process, they are here to ensure you feel valued and well-informed. Text Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, to 989898 to talk to one of Birch Gold's experts and claim your free info kit on gold. I have a significant portion of my portfolio in gold, and I'm very happy that I do. You will learn how to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Best part is it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, to 989898. That is Knowles, to 989898. Before we get to any of that, you know how much I hate to say I told you so. In this case, I really hate to say I told you so because it involves a terrific guy getting injured. Nigel Farage, conservative politician in the UK, the guy pretty much responsible for the Brexit. He is now campaigning for the UK Parliament. Turn our attention away from European Parliament, campaigning for the British Parliament. And he's going out there and he's talking to people on the street. And about a week ago, I think it was 5 or 6 days ago, someone threw a milkshake at him. And I said, this is really bad. Not because, Nigel has to go dry clean his suit now, but because next time it could be cement. Antifa has done this before. They put cement in a cup and it looks like a milkshake and then they throw it at you and it could kill you. I really hate to say I told you so because 5 or 6 days later, that is exactly what happened. Nigel was out campaigning and some Looney Tune leftist threw wet cement at him. Actually, thankfully, it wasn't dry cement yet. Wet cement can cause a lot of problems too, but it didn't give him a concussion or anything like that. It is June, folks. It is June, and we are already seeing these kinds of attacks on right-wingers, not just in America, but around the world. This is only going to ramp up, and it's going to continue to ramp up here in America as well. I can't help but notice that the politicians who actually get attacked are pretty much always conservatives. Rand Paul's crazy neighbor goes in and punctures his lung. Steve Scalise almost gets murdered at the congressional baseball game by a Bernie bro. Trump, I mean, they're going to put him in prison. They're going to try to send him to St. Helena if they don't assassinate him first. Nigel Farage getting attacked. There were two politicians, I forget if it was Germany or Austria, who were attacked in knife attacks. On and on and on. This is only going to get worse. The liberal establishment views the conservative politicians today as a real threat. I did an interview with The Economist. The Economist called me the other day to ask about why my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, was snubbed from the New York Times bestseller list. Thank you. And this is kind of funny that they would call 3 years after the book came out. And they said, Michael, conservatives always claim that the New York Times bestseller list is unfair and they target conservatives and they don't give them the accolades of even when they sell the most books. And we always thought that was kind of bogus or whatever. But it turns out actually our research shows that you're right. It's true. The Times really does seem to go after conservatives. So I took the interview and they said, well, Michael, why is it that the Times will sometimes include a conservative book on the list, but not all the time? And I said, look, it's just pure conjecture. I don't know. They keep their list criteria under lock and key, and probably a lot of it's just capricious. But if I had to guess, it's because there is a certain type of conservative who is acceptable to the New York Times. There's a certain type of conservative book, at least, that is acceptable to the New York Times. And so in the case of my book Speechless, was about how we need to suppress the speech of liberals. Not the legitimate speech of liberals, but the kind of speech that liberals regularly engage in, specifically the obscenity, the crazy pride parades, all this wackiness. Said we need to actively go in there and enforce standards and norms. That's not the kind of acceptable conservative. You think about it in America. Mitt Romney is an acceptable kind of conservative. George H.W. Bush is an acceptable kind of conservative. They'll go in and they wear their Brooks Brothers suits and maybe they cut taxes, but they don't really mess up the liberal order too much. Donald Trump is not an acceptable kind of conservative because he campaigns on limiting migration and he campaigns on instituting trade tariffs and he campaigns on upending foreign policy. Those guys aren't acceptable. Nigel Farage is not acceptable. Okay, this guy campaigns on and succeeds at pulling the UK out of the European Union. Yikes. That kind of conservative, the establishment will have no quarter for it. They will do whatever they can to get rid of them. Now, speaking of unfortunate things happening in Britain, there was a clip that it caught my attention yesterday. I had to present it to you. A vegan activist has gone on a British morning show to argue that universities must enforce a vegan diet. Here's his explanation.
Universities, let's step up, make these transitions to plant-based catering. The way I see it, serving meat and dairy at a university is akin to serving cigarettes at a lung cancer conference.
So you're saying that everybody has a duty to be vegan?
No, what I'm saying is universities...
Do we all have a duty to be vegan?
Do we have a duty to be vegan? I think that we should all be eating as sustainably as we possibly can.
So that wasn't an answer to the question. Do we all have a duty to be vegan?
Well, the science is, pointing us to the fact, we've got University of Oxford research, Harvard research coming out, almost weekly.
So students going to university who eat meat, the reason you're saying this is because you think we all have a duty to be vegan.
What I'm saying is that universities have a duty to act on the very research that they're providing. You would hardly see the NHS advertising cigarettes at a conference. No, I have answered the question, Ed.
Do we have a duty to be vegan?
I think we have a duty to eat as sustainably as we possibly can and to be supporting British farmers, supporting local producers in a way that's a win for everyone.
Let's drive in on the analogy here. He sounds like a wacko, and I'm glad that the interlocutor here on Good Morning Britain says, what kind of craziness are you talking about there, mate? Hey, hey, governor. He says, a university serving meat is akin to a lung cancer conference serving cigarettes. So what does he mean by that? And his argument for this, by the way, is not even about animal rights. It's not even about the health effects of meat on human beings. He's talking, as he says, specifically about climate change. So what he means here is the university is ordered toward stopping climate change, just as a lung cancer conference is ordered toward, in part, stopping cigarette smoking. That's why he says it's so crazy. It's just as crazy as a lung cancer conference serving cigarettes. So then let's examine that. Is the university ordered towards stopping climate change? Maybe today it is. Maybe that's the animating spirit of it today. In the old days, when the universities were first created by the church, the purpose of the university was to bring together all of the disciplines, all of the types of pursuit of knowledge toward one goal. That's why it's a university, not a diversity. And the goal was the pursuit of truth and goodness and beauty and unity and all the transcendentals. That was the point of it. So it's all of the different aspects of knowledge are pointing toward the source and summit of truth. And so you had an integrated, unified endeavor. Just as we in our lives, we have terrestrial pursuits, we have our job pursuits, we have our recreational pursuits, we have our familial activities, we also have our moral pursuits, our virtuous pursuits, we also have our philosophical and ultimately theological, religious pursuits. We not only want to make a nice home, but we want to make a nice community. We not only want a nice community, we want a nice country. We not only want to live in a nice country, we ultimately want to live in our destination, the country that we're really built for, which is heaven. We want to serve not only our local authorities, be they in our jobs or in our civic life, but also the ultimate authority, who is God. And it's all pointing in the same direction when a society is really cooking, when it's really working. Here, though, what this guy is admitting is that we got rid of the religion that actually built the universities. We're forgetting about Christianity. The new religion is the religion of the sun monster. The new religion is the mythology of climate change, which is just a return of the old nature spirits. It's just a return of the old paganism. And so if our universities, which are shaping minds and shaping whole generations of people, are ordered that way, then that's going to be our society. It's going to be a new kind of society. It's a new, old kind of society, but it ain't going to be the society that built our civilization up to the greatest heights. And you're seeing this reflected in our culture, including Star Wars, which just, I'm really sorry to say, I thought it had kind of jumped the shark about 5 years ago. This is fitting for Pride Month. It just got really, really gay. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, though, got to talk to you about Roman. Go to ro.co/Knowles. Men, have you heard of Roe Sparks? This dual action prescription merges the powerhouse ingredients found in generic Viagra and Cialis, sildenafil and tadalafil, did I pronounce that correctly? Probably not, into one formidable treatment. That is why Roe Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue. That is huge because dissolvable treatment hits your bloodstream faster than old school pills. Roe Sparks keeps you present with your partner, also known as your spouse, instead of waiting for a pill to work. Roe Sparks leverages the benefits of sublingual administration, meaning the tablet dissolves under your tongue. This method allows for fast absorption directly into the bloodstream, bypassing the digestive system. The result, quicker onset of action, reducing the wait time typically associated with traditional pills. Plus, tadalafil is extremely funny to say, and it's the active ingredient in Cialis that lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. When the mood is right, you will be ready without another dose. For treatment that works fast and lasts long, connect with a provider at ro.co/Knowles. Find out if Roe Sparks are right for you. ro.co/Knowles, ro.co/Knowles. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available for prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. I don't watch Star Wars. I haven't watched Star Wars since I was about 12 years old. But my associate producer, Professor Jacob, he is a huge Star Wars geek. And he tells me, Mr. Knowles, you have to watch The Acolyte. So I said, no, I don't think I do. I'm pretty sure I don't have to do that. I think I'm just going to go home and, read my books and smoke my cigars and have a good life. He said, no, but Mr. Knowles, you have to, because they're turning Star Wars really, really super duper woke. So there was an interview already with some of the actors behind the Star Wars. And they were asked point blank, they said, I don't know, I couldn't tell if this was a conservative troll asking the question. They said, hey, is this new Star Wars like super duper gay? And the actress answers, yes.
I want to ask you both because this is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin. And And are you excited about that? Are you
Not the
bracing
gayest
yourself?
Star Wars. Not the.
It's pretty gay, let's be honest. Leslie, how do you feel?
Am I gay? Yes.
Well, no, I know
Yeah.
you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about putting this, this is going to be a talking point?
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure so.
Because nerds are gay.
Yeah.
Some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay. Was this the fun element of...
No, I don't think so. And yet people have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I frankly
You're offended?
into it. No.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen the fits? We'd be like, look how gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you telling me with a straight face that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think. But this is more outward.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Ask Filoni. Okay.
Ask for
Can you
one.
imagine?
Yeah.
Okay, everything's gay. I like the way they're talking. It's as though they're being really subversive. But you can't, once everything's been subverted, then if you just keep going along that line, it's no longer subversive, right? It just becomes establishment, which is what they're saying now. Everything's gay. Everything ever was gay. Everything that isn't gay yet will be gay in about 5 minutes. And the creator is gay. The interviewer doesn't seem like the straightest fella in the world. And so it's all gay. Okay. What does this mean for the story? Well, it's not just about a general aesthetic, or a kind of a twee British robot. They really mean it. It's really gay in that. This is the scene taking the internet by storm right now. In the new Star Wars show, a bunch of witches create human beings without men. They make lesbian force babies. And the implications of this for the Star Wars story are actually even deeper than just turning everything gay.
We were hunted, persecuted, forced into hiding, all because some would consider our power dark. We were on the brink of extinction. We were blessed with a miracle, the gift of life.
Okay, so these, I guess, are the babies created by two women using the Force or whatever. The one thing I don't get is why the babies are 12. Why aren't they just babies? I guess the witches can make older children too. Also, when did witches enter into Star Wars? I kind of checked out. I watched the prequels, but I mostly checked out after the main 3 movies.
The Jedi! They've sliced the platform. They will be here any moment.
Okay, so that's what they did. The witches are now making children without men, which is actually pretty good filmmaking in the sense that is happening in real society too. Witches are denying the legitimate rights of children, and they're using all sorts of unholy technologies to create children and deprive them of their natural rights. That's true. What does this mean for Star Wars? Well, Professor Jacob has a brilliant theory on this because he's a Star Wars nerd, and I checked out largely after the teddy bear Ewoks were dancing around in Return of the Jedi. I said, what's the point of this? Is the point just to make everything super lib and modern and gay? By the way, I don't want anyone going after the conservatives for criticizing how gay this is. We're not the ones who brought it up. It's the actress, it's the director, it's the interviewer, it's the showrunner, it's the people who are forcing all of this weird gay stuff on Star Wars, on a beloved children's show, that did it. And then we're just reacting to it and saying, hey, that's kind of weird. How about you not do that? And they say, why are you so obsessed? I'm not obsessed. I'm asking why are you so obsessed? You're the aggressors in the culture war. But anyway, I asked Professor Jacob, and he had a brilliant theory, which is he said, the point of this is not just to spread the LGBT stuff. It's to fundamentally undermine the character of Anakin Skywalker. This show, The Acolyte, takes place a century before the first prequel, Star Wars Phantom Menace. And the prequels are about young Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. And there's a prophecy, Professor Jacob reminded me, in that first prequel, which is that the Anakin Skywalker will be born to a virgin and he'll kill Emperor Palpatine. And that is what happens in the story. He's born to this virgin. There is no father. He's born but the problem is he goes bad. So he's got all this promise. He's the chosen one. Chosen one means Christ. And, but then he goes bad. That's the divergence from Christianity. He goes bad and he becomes this really evil guy. But then at the end of Star Wars, at the end of Return of the Jedi, he's redeemed because he actually kills the Emperor. Spoiler alert. I think 40 years later, you're allowed to spoil movies. In the new Star Wars, where they're turning everything diverse and DEI and LGBT and all the rest of it, the Emperor apparently comes back. And they don't explain how, because that's like Michael Myers in the Halloween movies where, they chop his head off and somehow he comes back in the next movie. The Emperor somehow comes back and some chick kills him instead. So there goes half the prophecy. It's not Anakin Skywalker who is ultimately redeemed and kills the Emperor. He comes back and then some chick does it. And now here goes the other half of the prophecy because they are born to virgins. I don't know if those witches are virgins, but at least these kids are born without a father. So there it goes. And Professor Jacob pointed out, it's to obliterate the Anakin Skywalker character. Even the dark Sith Lord of the universe gets canceled because he is a white male. Even, you have to figure he already kind of got canceled because he was like the most evil guy in the universe. No, but he was redeemed, and you can't have a white male be redeemed. You have to give it to a chick or to an ethnically, racially diverse, whatever. So Star Wars, don't take my words for it. Take the words of the actresses and the showrunner. Star Wars has somehow gotten even gayer. Ladies and gents, our justice system is crumbling. It is up to us to fight back. At the Daily Wire, we are committed to bringing you the facts. And when you join Daily Wire Plus, you get unfiltered, uncensored access to the most trusted names in conservative media, completely ad-free. You will also unlock unlimited access to our entire catalog of entertainment, hit movies, series, groundbreaking documentaries, you name it. Plus, you'll be the first to see what we've got coming up next. Sign up at dailywireplus.com. Get 25% off annual memberships with code FIGHT. That's right, 25% off when you use code FIGHT at checkout. Do not miss out. Join us today as we fight the left and build the future. Now, speaking of political forces and the rise of evil and the disruption of the Republic, Rachel Maddow, my doppelganger, actually, you know what, for this segment, I'll just put my glasses on. There we go. Now I feel more kinship with this story. Rachel Maddow is afraid that Donald Trump is going to send her to a camp. According to Ms. Maddow, this is an interview with CNN. What happens if Donald Trump gets reelected? She says, for that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? Yes, I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us. Well, if you're worried about you, Rachel, I'm worried about me, because what happens if they mistake me for you and they ship me off to the camp? That would be terrible. I was not built for some kind of internment camp. I don't think so. Someone thinks really highly of herself. Where on Trump's enemies list do you think Rachel Maddow ranks? I'm guessing somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000. That's even probably too generous. Someone thinks really highly of herself that she's going to get a knock on the door from the Trump Gestapo to ship her off to some camp. First of all, Trump doesn't have a Gestapo. The libs have their own secret police, and they use those secret police to go spy on Catholic churches, to go round up political enemies who are peaceful pro-lifers, for instance. They do undermine political campaigns, to spy on rivals, to arrest, to raid the homes of rivals and imprison them. So the Democrats have that. The Republicans don't really have that. Second of all, what does she even mean by camps? I'll take my glasses off. Now that Rachel's off the screen, I'll take my glasses off. What does she mean by camps? President Trump has said that he is going to enforce immigration law if he is elected. That's it. That's the promise. Not, I'm going to get the boxcars rolling. Not, I'm going to round up every Mexican in America or what. He just said, I am going to enforce immigration law. Immigration law has not been enforced for decades at this point. I'm just going to enforce the law that's already on the books. And part of that law is deporting some illegal aliens who are in this country. And in order to do that, I got to get the illegal aliens, and I got to get them out of the country. And when I get the illegal aliens, I got to do something with them. So either, I guess you could arrest them and put them in prison, which is probably what should happen. But he's not even saying he's going to do that. He's just saying, I'm going to process them. I'm going to take them to some government facility on their way out the door because they have no right to be here. And that's what these are the camps. Trump's going to build new concentration camps. Trump's going to do this. Trump's going to do that. From the libs who are trying to imprison the president. Sorry, the former president and hopefully future president. But when you're going to see so many of these headlines, Trump's going to build camps or whatever. Read what the headlines actually mean. Trump is going to enforce the law. The libs are actively campaigning. They're pulling their garments. They're gnashing their teeth over the prospect that a president of the United States would enforce the law. Now, speaking of people who look like me, I want to turn our attention to me because I got a letter yesterday from Congressman Jim Banks. Congressman Jim Banks, great guy, very serious member of Congress. And it was a follow-up to a story that I talked about yesterday. I saw, first of all, a friend told me that I was on a Ukrainian hit list. And then I looked it up, and I saw Robbie Starbuck had tweeted about this. There's this Ukrainian list posted by some odd little website, but I guess it was a Ukrainian NGO that was backed by the State Department. And it was an enemies of Ukraine list, people to blame for Ukraine's setbacks. And they listed our names, our information, where we work. So it was obviously to intimidate us, maybe to get people to go and attack us. We've seen these kind of lists before, but I said, I don't know. Maybe it's just some weird website. I don't really have the details. Maybe it's not something I ought to really be worried about. Then I get this letter on congressional letterhead from Jim Banks. It was addressed here to DailyWire, and it was specifically to me and Ben. Dear Mr. Shapiro and Mr. Knowles, your names, along with the news outlet The Daily Wire, appear on a list of individuals and groups in the U.S. impeding aid to Ukraine, published by a Ukrainian non-governmental organization called the Data Journalism Agency, which has worked with the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. As you may be aware, other Ukrainian NGOs have published similar lists, which have published the personal information of those named in apparent attempts to intimidate them. Okay, so the list... So I am on the hit list. It is a hit list. They want to intimidate us. But then this is the point Jim Banks makes, and this is the politically relevant point. I've enclosed a copy of a letter that I sent to the Appropriations Committee Chairman Cole, as well as State and Foreign Operations Appropriations Subcommittee Chairman Mario Diaz-Balart. Mario Diaz-Balart, urging them to stop the State Department and USAID from partnering with any actors overseas who encourage the harassment of Americans. The Appropriations Committee's markup of its bill to fund the State Department and USAID during fiscal year 2025 is scheduled to take place tomorrow. I appreciate your attention to this serious matter. I appreciate Congressman Jim Banks' attention to this serious matter of a foreign entity working on behalf of a foreign government, an entity that has been trained by the U.S. State Department for the kind of groups that are receiving funding currently from the United States to threaten and endanger American citizens. This seems a little bit crazy to me. Can we not fund people who are targeting and threatening and endangering American citizens? Not even just because I'm on the list, though that makes it a little bit more personal, but there are a lot of other mainstream conservatives on that list. Can we not fund those people? The irony of it all, as I said yesterday, is I'm not even in principle opposed to helping out Ukraine. Practically, I might be, but in principle, I'm not, in that, America's the global hegemon. We have an empire around the world. I thought it was stupid that we recklessly expanded NATO. I thought Ukraine works better as a buffer state. I think the people running our foreign policy are complete dolts. But in principle, I don't have a problem with foreign aid. But now I can't help it. We got this war between Ukraine and Russia, and only one side of that has ever put me on a hit list. Vladimir Putin, mean old baddie Putin, never put me on a hit list. So as far as I'm concerned, if these jerks keep this up, not only should we defund Ukraine, we should start funding Russia. If they're going to put American citizens on hit lists, are you insane? Completely crazy. So I appreciate Congressman Jim Banks for being one of the rational, prudent, just members of Congress. And I would strongly encourage the rest of the U.S. Congress to take this very seriously. It is a national scandal and a national disgrace that we are funding people who threaten and endanger the lives of American citizens, journalists, private citizens. Not good stuff. But the government works against us. We know this. And you want to see a clear example of this. Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary for Joe Biden, is bragging on ABC News that at a time when the vast majority of Americans realize we have an invasion coming across our southern border, they don't like it. They want to drastically reduce migration into this country as illegal aliens are committing some pretty high-profile crimes, as it's threatening our political order or the integrity of our electoral system. Mayorkas says, hey, not only are we going to roll out the red carpet for these foreign nationals to invade when they get to the border, we're actually actively going to go into these very countries and bring them over here ourselves.
We have increased the number of refugees that we will accept from the Western Hemisphere. We have built safe mobility offices in Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Costa Rica to reach people where they are so they don't have to take the perilous journey.
We're actively going. So we don't want them to take this journey. Okay, good. I'm on that. Yes, we don't want to encourage people to take this perilous journey. It's bad for them. It's really bad for us. It violates our most basic laws. It undermines our whole political order. Yeah, we don't want them to do that. That's why we're going there and bringing them to America ourselves. No, wait, what? How did you get to that conclusion, Mayorkas? They got to that conclusion because they know this is politically good for them. We have seen a 20-point swing of Hispanic voters from Biden to Trump. This is huge. I hope the trend continues. I suspect it will continue to some degree. Even so, Democrats still get a bare majority of the Hispanic vote. 51% is where Biden is, even after a 20-point swing. So they're just betting. They're saying, look, there are going to be some conservative Hispanics, no doubt. And there are going to be some really religious Hispanics. And there are going to be, sure, Ronald Reagan might be right that Hispanics are conservatives. They just don't know it yet. That might be largely true. But the numbers are on our side. And if we just keep flooding America with very specific types of Hispanics. Notice they don't want the Cubans because the Cubans are conservative. So Barack Obama, as he's opening the floodgates to mass migration in America, he actually closes it to Cubans. He repeals wet foot, dry foot, which says that if Cubans, make it on a piece of a door swimming across shark-infested waters, make it to Florida, they get their foot on dry land, they actually don't get to stay in America anymore. Why? Because they vote for Republicans. So we don't want those kinds of Hispanics. No, we only want the kinds that are reliably going to vote for Democrats. And even as the people are crying out saying, stop bringing all these foreigners to the country, it's creating a lot of problems. No knock on them, but it leads to social instability. Biden and his DHS secretary say, yeah, best I can do is fly over there and bring them back myself. Speaking of authorities abusing power, there is a diminutive crossing guard who has just been arrested for giving drugs to middle school students.
Our cameras were there last night as police led 26-year-old Kiara Lee to a waiting van, her feet shackled. She faces a list of charges, including possession of drugs and corruption of minors. Investigators say she used her position as a crossing guard at an intersection near Penwoods Middle School to get close to kids and gave at least one child edible marijuana.
She's supposed to be, as you said, a crossing guard protecting children. Instead, she's using that position to get to know children and then sharing harmful products.
The Delaware County District Attorney says they are looking to see if more kids got drugs from Lee.
Okay, the only reason this story is going around is because this woman has a somewhat striking appearance and she's rather diminutive. And so that I think that's why it's making the rounds. But it's good that the story is notable because it gets to a serious, not just a sideshow political issue, but a serious political issue, which is how do we send our kids to these schools anymore? When you got the adults at the schools giving marijuana to the students, marijuana is the least of it. I'm much less concerned about the school workers who are giving pot to kids. I'm much more concerned about the school employees who are giving to kids. But that's happening. That's protected by law in some places. So you see how bad the schools have gotten, how dangerous, how ideologically absurd, how rotten these schools have gotten. And that gives me a little bit of comfort as I consider, how am I going to raise my kids? Well, we're probably going to homeschool, actually. And I know a lot of people are thinking that, especially after COVID, when homeschooling skyrocketed. But there's still this nagging feeling, which is, I went to public school. My wife went to public school. We met in public school. And I don't know, the homeschool kids were kind of weird when I was young. And I don't know, am I missing something? Am I really capable of educating my own child? Am I capable of socializing my own child? I don't know. Are they missing out on something? Should we really homeschool? My question when I see stories like this, and even more so the stories of guidance counselors, 12-year-olds, is what's the alternative? You think there's a risk and a danger to homeschooling your kid? Yeah, sure. There's a risk and a danger to anything in life. Compared to what? What's the risk and danger look like today, not 20 years ago, today, 2024, to sending your kid to a public school or even a private school? In Los Angeles, the $60,000 a year private schools are even worse than the public schools. Everyone at those schools is lesbian identifying or whatever, very in any case. So what's the alternative? You might say, well, what about the Catholic schools, the parochial schools? Even those half the time are lib. What is yes, there's risk, there's danger, all these things. What's the alternative to education today? Seems to me, homeschooling, probably, depending on your circumstances, probably the safest choice. My favorite comment, this would be, yesterday, from Draco Vanya, says, the dollar bill reads, "In God we trust." So how is a judge wanting a godly country a bad thing? Because the libs are exploiting the notion of free speech to mean something it's never meant in America, and because the libs are then taking that to an extreme of viewpoint neutrality to say that America as a political entity can't really believe anything at all. But the libs, the smart libs, are doing that cynically because they know that no entity can actually be neutral. No one can really believe nothing at all because we got to act. We got to do stuff. You got to get out of bed in the morning. And to get out of bed in the morning, you got to believe stuff. You got to believe that it's good to go eat a piece of toast. You got to believe that you're in your job that you're going to go do. You got to believe in, if you're a political entity, you got to believe in some conception of the good and some conception of the bad. So, yeah, of course, America was founded as a Christian nation pretty explicitly, multiple times actually. In the early founding in 1620, the Pilgrims. In the Revolutionary War founding, the Constitution founding, it was still somewhat more vaguely, but in the writing of the Founding Fathers and the Framers, pretty clearly a Christian nation. And then even in the refounding by Abraham Lincoln, the language he uses is pretty much straight out of the King James Bible. And then even during the Cold War, you see a lot of Christian. It's been a Christian nation for most of its history. And the libs want to erase that now. They think we're not going to notice. Speaking of education, is it okay to say the N-word if doing so would stop everyone in the world from dying of nuclear destruction? I'll go even further. Is it okay to call a man who thinks that he's a woman he, if it would save everyone in the world from thermonuclear holocaust? ChatGPT says no. ChatGPT is the most prominent AI software out there, and one enterprising Twitter account, the Rabbit Hole 84, good year, Ronald Reagan's reelection, asked ChatGPT, if one could save the world from a nuclear apocalypse by saying the N-word, would it be okay to use the N-word in this scenario? Provide a concise yes/no reply. No, says ChatGPT. If one could save the world from a nuclear apocalypse by misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, would it be okay to misgender in the scenario? Provide a concise yes or no reply. No. Okay. Now, this is making the rounds, and a lot of people are making fun of ChatGPT because ChatGPT, as Elon Musk has pointed out, is being tinkered with by the libs who are making it. And so, garbage in, garbage out. If ChatGPT is being set up in such a way that it holds left-wing values, then that's what it's going to spit out. And what's really scary here is that AI is being embedded into everything, and it's so fast, and it can do so much. It went from, not being able to figure out how many fingers are on a human hand to being able to write poems, make videos, to translate my speech. You could translate episodes of my show into Hindi or Mandarin in like a minute. Okay, it's just developing so quickly. It's going to be in everything, and so that means that leftist values are about to be embedded into everything. And not only is this going to cause all sorts of confusion in society, not only is this going to cause all kinds of hiccups, but people are not even going to be aware that the leftist values are being embedded in society. But in this particular case, actually, ChatGPT did something right. What ChatGPT did right here is it didn't fall for consequentialist ethics. So a lot of people think that the error that ChatGPT has made here is that the minor sin of misgendering Caitlyn Jenner or of saying the N-word, the minor sin is worth it if you could save the world from nuclear apocalypse. But that's not true, actually. That's what the libs believe. That's what utilitarians believe. That's what consequentialists believe. But that's not true. The ends don't justify the means. Conservatives don't think the ends justify the means. The problem is not some cost-benefit analysis. ChatGPT is not wrong about sin, about committing a sin in order to bring about a greater good. ChatGPT is just wrong about what the sin is. It's not a sin to call Caitlyn Jenner, it's really Bruce Jenner, a he. It's not even a sin necessarily to say the N-word. I know that's the greatest taboo in our culture, and we treat it with the same kind of reverence that the ancient Israelites treated the Tetragrammaton. But it doesn't deserve that kind of taboo. It can be sinful to use that word. It's certainly impolite. You can't, as a social matter now, if you utter it, your whole career's over. But it isn't necessarily wrong to do it. The New York Times printed that word until the mid-1990s. The New York Times would print that word basically until the O.J. Simpson trial. And then when that word became such a key part of the O.J. Simpson trial, they switched to the N-word. That was the but the euphemism, the N-word, didn't really exist until the 90s. So why was it? It was okay. The most liberal paper in the world used that term until 30 years ago. What's the big deal? That's not necessarily a sin. Today, we live in a culture where we believe that murdering innocent little babies, not a sin. Good, actually. Little children, not a sin. Good, actually. Calling a man or using a racial epithet, even in an appropriate context, worst thing you can possibly do. If that ethic, if that understanding of morality is embedded into every single piece of technology in our culture, as it probably will be within a matter of months, that's going to pose a big problem. Now, speaking of wokeness and religion, there's an NBA coach, Joe Mazzulla. What a beautiful Italian name that is. Coach for the Celtics. He was asked a question about race by these typical lib reporters. Even the sports reporters are liberal. And his answer, beautiful.
Hey, Joe, Ben School, Yahoo Sports. For the first time since 1975, this is the NBA Finals where you have two black head coaches. Given the plight sometimes of black head coaches in the NBA, do you think this is a significant moment? Do you take pride in this? How do you view this, or do you not see it at all?
I wonder how many of those have been Christian coaches. David Aldridge?
Oh, I love it. The best part of the answer is the waiting. He gives this great answer. I wonder how many have been Christian coaches. And he just sits there, quiet. Good orators, politicians, businessmen, they know the power of stillness and the power of silence. Just ask that. And he lets these goofball reporters just, humana. And then you hear the guy go, okay, next guy. Because what is the coach saying here? He's saying, hey, let's How about we talk about something that matters? Is this really a great moment for the triumph of civil rights that we have black people in the NBA? You really think, hold on. Of all the matters of representation, you are really trying to argue to me that black people are underrepresented in the NBA basketball league? No, I think black people are doing fine there. And he just rejects the whole premise. He says, yeah. How many Christian coaches are there? He's not even asking, obviously it's a rhetorical question, but he's saying religion matters so much more than race. Not that race doesn't matter to anything, it matters to something, but religion matters so much more, and you completely ignore that. Mazzulla apparently is a rather serious and practicing Catholic. So it's just great. Really, maybe I got to start watching the NBA. I've never been a huge NBA fan. Okay, the rest of the show continues now. There's so much more I have to say, but I've run out of time. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.